Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to start the episode 2 playthrough of the Law series for PSO. Hi guys, and welcome back to the next part of the PSO Law playthrough. Now in our last episode we finished the episode 1 main story playthrough, so today we're going to take our first steps into episode 2. Now with episode 2, I think the way I'm going to do this series is I'm probably just going to play through the lab quests. Now, the reason for that is because the lab quests will give you the main story of episode 2. And in Blue Burst, a lot of the little extra information isn't as readily available in regular area playthroughs, which is what I did for episode 1. So I think by doing the lab quests, it's probably the best experience for anyone watching, just so you get a better idea of what the story is like in episode 2. So just a quick overview first. So episode 2 takes place at... You may think that with it being called episode 2 that it starts after episode 1, but that's not actually the case. So the events of episode 2 actually start at about the same time as episode 1, maybe even slightly before. However, a lot of the events of episode 2 don't involve your character and take place long before you get involved. So we'll go into that as we get onto the story. So just to start with, so this is Pioneer 2 in episode 2, and you can see it does look quite different. The reason for that is because this is a separate part of Pioneer 2 called the lab. So this is like the scientific research part of Pioneer, which you don't tend to see in episode 1. The reason for this is because a lot of your jobs in episode 2 are done at the request of the lab rather than the principality. You can see we are still hovering above Ragol, and when you look around you can see that it is definitely still Pioneer 2. So what we'll do is, I think without any further ado, we'll jump straight into the first government quest, just so you can get an idea of what the basic story of episode 2 actually involves. So this is the main lab area for Pioneer 2, and there's a few NPCs here, and this is another reason that I'm not doing this in one-person mode, because in one-person mode none of these NPCs are here. So we have a few, and a couple of them you may recognise if you've played some of episode 1. So first of all we have Null. Null is, she is originally a journalist who wanted to expose everything that was happening in Ragol. We'll probably cover a little bit more of her side story in a separate video, but she also now has a role in the lab in episode 2. So this is Null Rinal. We then have, in the centre we've got Natasha Milrose, who is the head of the lab. And she's the one that actually gives you most of your requests. And then this is just an assistant for Natasha. And on the right, we have Ellie. Now Ellie, again, you will have met in episode 1 if you did some of the side story quests, and again we will do another video that covers a bit more about Ellie's backstory. But you can see she's at this big computer terminal which is called, well, the text looks a bit like Kale's, but it's actually meant to be Callus. And again, if you've done Ellie's story in episode 1, you kind of know what Callus is. So without further ado, we'll get straight into the government quests. So to start the lab quests, you actually take them from Null. So yeah, I think this is probably the best way of going through the actual story of episode 2, because it's a lot more well explained by doing it this way. So, Hunter-Taker, thank you for coming. I'm Natasha Milrose, General Chief of Pioneer 2 Research Facilities. This is your first time in the lab, right? This is the centre of all Pioneer 2 research facilities. We simply call it the lab. The incident on Ragol, the mysterious underground ruins, and ferocious life forms. I'm sure you, as a hunter, have experienced them all. Here we conduct research based on data collected by hunters. Then we report our findings to the administration. What we would like to discuss with you today is not a direct order from the administration. You can think of it as a mission request from the lab to all available hunters. I'll explain briefly. We discovered a new point on Ragol's surface from our own research. It all started with a communication we recently received from a man. This man was a high-ranking official from Pioneer 1. Now at this point, if you've played through episode 1, you've probably got massive alarm bells, because it was very clear, as if you watched the last episode, that no one survived episode 1. No one survived Pioneer 1. So the fact that we're getting a communication from someone from Pioneer 1 is very strange. But here is something that really bothers me. Based on the log we received while we were travelling, this man had passed away a few years ago on the surface of Ragol. So we want to find out what happened to him. But this mission involves a high amount of risk. And this mission must remain a secret. In order for us to measure your ability as a hunter, you'll have to go through a series of exams. I've always found it funny this with episode 2 that realistically if you play episode 2 you're probably going to have played through episode 1 first. So you have literally saved the world from Darkfalls, but no, you've got to do some exams. Again though, at this point it's hard to tell where this chronologically takes place. She's talked about the incident on Ragol and the mysterious ruins, so that indicates to me that this takes place maybe around the same time the ruins is getting investigated, possibly even after Darkfalls, maybe. It's really hard to tell at this point. An aide will assist you with further details about the Hunter's exam. I look forward to seeing your great results. I'll explain further about the Hunter's exam. The exam will take place in a virtual reality system in the lab. PSO way ahead of its time. There are 2 VR fields for the Hunter's exam: Temple and Spaceship. These 2 VR fields are divided up into 3 areas: Alpha, Beta, and the final area. Once you finish Alpha, Beta, and Final, you will have cleared the Temple. You cannot clear all of the areas at once. Please understand that we have a designated series of tests to conduct. You may come back to the lab before completing the field if you want, but we recommend that you complete the exam as quickly as possible, so don't waste too much time. Here are the details for the first exam. The test takes place in VR Field Temple Alpha. Following your operator's directions, battle the hostile creatures within, and eliminate them as you head for the goal to clear the VR field. Previous investigations show that the surface of Ragol is rife with dangerous wildlife, and we've confirmed that. For the lab, we have one real goal. It is to determine if you are truly capable of carrying out your tasks. And believe us, if you qualify, you'll get a real challenge. To get to the VR field, go down the slope, turn left, and you'll see a blue gate in the back. Go through the gate and you'll see a teleporter. Good luck. So you may notice that the Ellie that was here before is not here now. So we'll head down to the temple. So again, from what he said there, we have Temple and Spaceship, which are both these virtual reality areas. And what you'll see as we load into them is that they are comprised of enemies from episode 1. So there is no actual new enemies necessarily. There is technically a new rare enemy, but most of the enemies in these areas are just episode 1 copy and pastes, apart from the bosses. And they basically want to assess your ability as a hunter at this point, which again I've always found strange considering that you've probably done episode 1. But maybe SEGA were looking at this as, you know, maybe you're running a new character for this, so they need to assess your ability. So they basically just want to see how capable you are as a hunter to determine if you are worthy of taking on this task to find out what happened to this man they've received a message from. So as we load in, we'll come across these little terminals. These are essentially communication terminals that allow you to communicate back with the lab. VR test field transmission from Temple Area Alpha. Accessing Hunter Taker. Hello, can you hear me? How do you do, Taker? This is the lab. Welcome to the VR field. I'm your support operator, Ellie Person. So Ellie that we saw earlier is your support operator for these tests. And again, Ellie you will be somewhat familiar with if you've done the side story of episode 1. Particularly a quest called, I believe it's called Knowing One's Heart, where you meet her for the first time. Nice to meet you. What's in front of you is our latest portable communication terminal. I call him Cal. And again, if you've done Knowing One's Heart, you'll kind of know why she's called it Cal. What do you think? Cool, huh? The design? Nice lines, eh? Sexy? You can access the terminal as you find her on the VR field. You'll get support from us there and receive field information. When you see a terminal, go ahead and access it. But during battle, you probably won't be able to access them. You should be able to access one if the green light is lit. Oh yeah, and this hunter's exam will test your ability as a hunter. Don't stress too much though, it's just practice training. Keep in mind that in VR space, everything works the same as in reality. So don't slack off. Oh, sorry. Yes, yes. I said I'm sorry. I'll be more careful in the future. Who do they think they are? Oh, they told me not to open my mouth unless it was necessary. That's the life of a rookie. Anyway, be careful. It's not Raggle, you know. Good luck. Yeah, so Ellie is going to be our support operator for all of these tests, and she's going to give us information on the enemies and the areas and so on. However, it is clear that the lab are very closely monitoring what she's doing. So at this point, it is just a case of running through Temple. Now, Temple, I can't really go into the lore of the area or anything because it is just a VR area. There are some cool little Easter eggs with the area though, which I will come on to if I see any of them. So you can see that a lot of the enemies in Temple are just these episode 1, enemies that we've fought several times before. I'm just blowing through this in normal just purely because, just for the sake of getting to the communication terminals a bit faster. So this is the first little Easter egg that we come across in Temple. So we have this little display which shows some weapons. Now, the cool thing about this is that these are all weapons you can actually get in PSO. So from left to right, we have the Imperial Pick, the Berdish, the Ancient Saber, Chainsword, Simakiri J Sword, and Double Cannon. So these are all weapons that you can get in PSO. Although, to be honest, kind of ignore the last two because you're never going to see either of those. But it's pretty cool. There is also, on the other side, you can see that there is a statue of Principal Tyrell as well. Okay, so as we get a bit further through, we get another message from, well, another terminal from Ellie. Take it, this is the lab. Hi, it's Ellie. How's it going? Oh, I forgot to mention something before. You know the creatures in the VR field? We're using creature data that's being collected by hunters on Ragol. Now that's interesting the way she phrases that. So we're using creature data that's being collected by hunters on Ragol. So this to me suggests that this takes place at the same time as, maybe the same time as the ruins are being investigated. Because data is still being collected. But it's been adjusted to match the danger level we expect for the research mission at the new point. And there's one more big difference. The ecosystem. Hey, this is important. Even creatures that live in totally different areas on Ragol can interact and create whole new ecosystems in the VR field. Sorry, you didn't hear that from me. I hope they didn't hear me. Oh, what the heck? Taker, do you know what this means? So what she's essentially hinting at there is the fact that in episode 1, every enemy in forest was a native enemy, every enemy in caves was an altered beast, every enemy in mines was a machine, every enemy in ruins was dark. In episode 2, that gets thrown out the window. and enemies can be from all different areas. They can be all different attributes, so it mixes things up a lot more. So for example here, we've got a ladder minion which is dark, but then we've also in the same room got Poison Lily which is Altered Beast. So what you'll find as you go through these VR areas is you are very much sort of led through them and led to these terminals. So the game obviously wants you to interact with these as you go through. Again, it's hard to give any sort of lore at this point in episode 2 because this entire area is fabricated anywhere. Hi, this is Ellie. How's everything going? Maybe you've noticed already, but part of the VR field really seems like a maze. I guess it just shows the true personality of the original architect. Sorry, I'm talking too much again. Before you get lost in the maze, I highly recommend you check your position with the area map. Good luck. Yeah, so she's talking about how good the architect is. Again, if you've done episode 1 and you've done the side quest that has Ellie in it, you kind of know what makes her tick. And from that, you can probably deduce who the architect was. So when we get to this room, we have essentially like a final room where we have to defeat all of these enemies. This is meant to be like the final part of this initial test. So as we come to the end of this test, we have one final terminal. Transmitting test record. Enemies eradicated, areas secured, both confirmed. Hello Taker, this is the lab. Ellie speaking. I've confirmed your exam results, Taker. Looks like you've cleared the mission for the first test. We'll be disconnecting the VR link temporarily, so please head back now. So we head straight back to the lab. And I guess we're going to talk to Natasha to hand our results in. How'd you find the test, Hunter Taker? I've always found it weird how they always describe you as like Hunter and then your name. Like, you could just call me by my name. Your results have been recorded and checked. You've passed, but now we'd like you to take the next test as well. Take what time you need in order to get ready. I'll be waiting. You passed the first test, there weren't any problems. Just so you know, this test is also a test for our VR technology. To see how suitable it is. I'm a bit troubled by the results, but anyway, the exam is over. Thank you very much. So the lab is clearly using this VR for something else as well, but they're not really going into why. Again, there is this kind of slight shadiness with the lab and with Pioneer 2, with the government in general, which if you played episode 1 is just completely justified. For episode 2, obviously we don't really know a whole lot about what's going on at the moment, so it's hard to sort of base any conclusions about what they might be doing. But it's clear that as well as using this VR system to actually test hunters, they're also using it to develop something else as well. But at the moment, we are pretty much in the dark. Now, this series is going to be a little bit different to the episode 1 playthrough because of the way this works, you'll have a few tests for the same area. And because of this, you might find that a few episodes are going to be Temple, and then a few will be Spaceship, a few will be Central Control, and so on. So hopefully that's a reasonable way of doing it. I think it's just the easiest way of doing the episode 2 playthrough, honestly. Just because it feels like the episode 2 lore parts are not really explained all in one player until you get to kind of Central Control area. So maybe once we get to Central Control, maybe we can switch things up a little bit, but for the time being, I think the lab quests are probably the best way of doing things. So it says we've cleared the first test and we're now qualified to take the next one. So in the next episode, we'll pick up the next lab quest. Again, at the moment, there isn't really a whole lot we can go on from this. We just know that we've been asked to try and find someone that a signal has come from on Ragol, from a new area on Ragol that we've never been to before. But we've been told that the signal is from someone who apparently passed away, so it's obviously very, very strange that we're getting a signal from them. And it does also raise questions about what happened, because we know from episode 1 that most of the people on Pioneer 1 died. Again though, it is very hard to tell at this point when this takes place chronologically in comparison to episode 1. As you'll find out later on, episode 2, the first parts of episode 2 before you get involved actually take place before episode 1. But where you come into this with the lab, I'm not exactly sure where that fits into the timeline in correlation with episode 1. So it is a little bit confusing to try and piece it together at this point. So hope you've enjoyed this video anyway. I know it might be a little bit shorter than the usual lore playthroughs, but we will keep doing these and we will go through the entire episode too. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing, or joining as a member. We do a couple of videos a week, and we also stream on a weekend as well. We normally stream Phantasy Star content as well as the occasional other games like Monster Hunter. You can also follow us on, join us on the Discord, where we have an active community that plays some of the games. You can follow me on X at Section Skyline. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and hope to see you guys in the next one.